All right, and welcome back. This is the top 8 Final Fantasy Flight, or Final Fantasy Flight,
Fantasy Flight
the finals.
Finals.
This is the finals Fantasy Flight game. No,
And just as we've done with other debates,
mhm.
when it comes to the finals, neither one of us pick a side. We're strictly going into our categories, and if we have to, we're going into the tiebreaker.
Yep. And so, as a quick recap, we have Mansions of Madness versus our number 4 seed, which was our number 1 seed, versus our number 4 seed, Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle-earth.
And before we get going, I just wanted to mention the 2 games that were eliminated last round were Cosmic Encounters and Eldritch Horror. Cosmic Encounters was our 4th place on fan votes with 4 votes. And then Eldritch Horror was the number 2 seed, but it was actually sitting at 3 when it comes to the fan votes. So if you've been keeping track, the top 8 debate, the number 1 seed and the number 4 seed are the top 2 vote getters.
Wow. There we go. So this is going to be an interesting debate. We're going to definitely have to go into this because...
Also, I need to clarify this real quick. That are in our debate. One of the games was actually outvoted by one of the People's Choice, that was Star Wars Rebellion.
Wow, that's awesome. So we definitely need to get that to the table.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be a very difficult one because if you are familiar with both these games, you understand how similar of a game they are. They both use apps. They both tell a story. The map is generally procedurally generated. They all
have an argument against one of the games when we get to it.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are going between them. And I feel like each one of the 5 categories that we have, if they're not a wash, it's going to be like a very small factor.
Yeah, small
into
margin
it.
here.
Yeah. I know which one I prefer out of these 2, but let's jump into it.
I know which one I prefer out of these 2 because of the argument that I've heard about it, and I looked into it, and it's true.
Really? I'm curious. So, is there any of them that we want to discuss immediately? I do have one that I feel...
I already know one that I think should go to 1, and it goes to my argument for it. And that I think Mansions of Madness should win art production. I know there's something here that you would argue against, but art is pretty much the same. Both are really good art on it.
Yeah.
The pieces and components, I think there's just a little bit more when it comes to Mansions of Madness with all the monster minis that come with it. But when it comes to the design, I think this goes to Mansions of Madness, and this is why. The Lord of the Rings Journey to Middle-earth has a flaw when it comes to its app integration. Because it is a campaign game. And some people won't consider this a flaw, but I do. And that is that if you fail a scenario, you cannot replay that scenario if you're playing the campaign.
In Lord of the Rings?
It will not let you play that scenario over again.
I've been able to play the same scenario multiple times.
You can play the first scenario multiple times, but when you're going through the stories, you cannot replay scenarios. So if you get corrupted, something bad happens. If you do this, it as much of a good integration as it is, I don't want to be blocked out from being able to play it. And you can research this and you can look it up. I've actually seen a lot of videos based on this, including the Secret Cabal has talked about this, where it does not allow you to play those scenarios properly. Where Mansions of Madness, you can either play the campaign or you can play individual scenarios. Lord of the Rings, you cannot when it comes to the app.
That is interesting.
That is my flaw with it.
Huh. That's intriguing. So it's almost like a legacy component where...
Yeah, a legacy component in that aspect, yeah.
I was going to argue... I was going to agree with you, but for a different reason, actually.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
And this is one... And this will probably, unfortunately, downplay Lord of the Rings a little bit more. Because when you're fighting a group of monsters, if you have, let's say, wolves over here and wolves over here on 2 different spots, the app makes it very confusing as to which group of wolves you're fighting. Whereas in Mansions of Madness, that's resolved because you know exactly which monsters you're fighting.
And not just that, I don't know Journeys to Middle Earth does this, but Mansions of Madness, you can actually number the monsters too.
Yeah.
Like, so if you have like Spawn or Star Childs or something like that in the map, and there's 2 of them, you can actually number them 1 and number 2. So which one will activate first, and which one is actually you're attacking and stuff like that.
Okay. Then I don't disagree with that. Art and production, I feel, will go to Mansions of Madness. Now, do you feel that having them do that, not being able to replay the scenario, is a glitch, or do you think that was intention?
I think it's intentional because they're forcing players to move forward and do better. My only issue is, as much as I like legacy games, I like a lot of the fact that people are going away from that and more going campaign games, because it still allows you to do something like in Gloomhaven. If I play the scenario and if I play the campaign all the way through, there's scenarios that I can't get into.
Mm-hmm.
Well, later on, if I want to, I can just play that straight up scenario to see what I missed.
That makes sense. See, that's why I almost wonder. I bet that's actually, in a way, a positive spin as far as meaningful choices. So, like, take Pandemic Legacy, for example. You and I have both played it. I'm not going to give spoilers. But one of the mechanisms in Season 1 for Pandemic Legacy, and this is true at the very beginning of the game, is if your character gets too many scars, they're dead. You have to... They're gone. And that's really impactful to the amount of caution you want to put towards that. So that might actually be...
If you think about it along the lines of everybody's playing Pandemic, so they know the medic. They know his power, his ability.
Right.
So if you lose the medic early on, that's going to hurt you throughout the entire game because you're losing that ability.
Right. So I think that's really interesting, is that... And that makes sense, thematically. I'm going on this giant quest to capture the ring, oh, well, I didn't do that good on this last game, I can't go back, And I get, like, the frustration in that, but I do think that intentionality makes it way more impactful, knowing, hey, look, our choices now do matter.
To me, personally, I have an issue with that, because you're basically taking away a component of the game. You expect it in a legacy game, but they're not building this as a legacy game. They're only building this as a campaign game. So if they're taking that scenario away for you to play after the fact, that hurts.
Well, you could... Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, and help me clarify this, if that's just specifically for your campaign. So if you and me did a campaign together, right?
I think it is
you and I
just
can't replay.
I don't know if you can go back and play that scenario. I haven't looked too deep into it, but I know that it takes it away. You can't replay it to fix something, or
for that campaign, right?
You cannot replay that scenario.
Right, but that's specifically for your campaign. I'm guessing you could probably just start a new campaign, and when you get to it, now knowing that.
And I think with a lot of people with Mansions of Madness, when it comes to its campaign, if you fail that scenario, you have to replay that scenario to move on. You have to defeat that scenario. And that's what people have a problem with, is that let us have that ability. With this one, it's like, no, you failed, that scenario's over with, you'll never get to play it again.
As far as that campaign goes. But that helps progress the story, which I don't think is a terrible thing.
It isn't, but I get why people don't argue against it, and why I wouldn't like it. Yeah, it progresses the story, but it doesn't give me the full...
It doesn't give you a sense of closure, and where that makes sense. Like, I guess it kind of goes into how immersive the theme is too, in a way. Like, because Lord of the Rings
does help it when it comes to the immersion, but it's also a detriment to it when it comes into the design.
To replay. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting when we get to those parts.
So here comes the fun one. I think, is there anything else that really stands out for you for these games? Because
if we're not mistaken, then art and production is
Mansions of
Madness. Ease of play is Lord of the Rings.
Yes, and just for one simple fact.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings. It's going to get to the table a lot easier than, say...
Right. H.P. Lovecraft. Yep. They're both as AP prone as the other.
Honestly, they pretty much play the same. It's just Lord of the Rings is much easier to get into.
Right. So let's talk about meaningful choices. Impacting others. They're both co-op. That's a wash, right? Impacting the long-term strategy of the game, I feel leans towards Lord of the Rings because of the arguments I already said. But the arbitrary choices with the flipping the deck versus dice rolling, I feel, is where Lord of the Rings comes out on top.
And here's why I argue the long-term strategy goes to Mansions of Madness. You argued it in the last point, in the last round, that if you go the long way, you're going the wrong way.
That, and that's
That
mostly true. Yeah, I mean
yeah,
that's
and then
because they
but
know
with this one,
the fantasy trope.
it but the long term strategy is I need to talk to the guy. Maybe he'll give me something, or maybe I need to fight that guy because I need to drop. He needs to drop something. There's a lot more strategy when it comes to Mansions of Madness because you got to be smart about what you're doing
Right.
because you all need to work together to find out what's going on.
Then I would say impacting long term, just because with the fact of the ability to red herring versus the vagueness. Let's call that a wash. I think that's a fair.
Okay.
But
Arbitrary choices, yeah, I'll agree with you that it's Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yeah, just because that deck flipping system, the better cards I get, the better my character is, the more choice I have.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, I get better dice rolls, but if I still roll bad, I can re-roll it, but I might still roll bad.
So here for me, and I know this is going to be tough for you, but I think game immersion goes to Mansions of Madness, and this is why, and it's mainly because of theme matching the mechanism. As good as the exploration is for Lord of the Rings, and yeah, that's great. I get the tension that you're trying to survive something that's going on. So I played a scenario, and I'm not trying to spoil it, where you're trying to survive basically a horde of monsters coming after you. And I felt the tension trying to run away. Do I stand and fight right now, or do I run away and hopefully survive? So I feel that immersion itself, that theme, that you need to find what you're looking for in a certain house, or you need to run away from this horde of mob of things that are going after you. And you got to make those decisions. With interacting with other players, it's pretty much the same because they're both co-ops.
Yeah.
Decisions you make impact the other players.
Yeah, I was actually gonna. I'm agreeing with you. Also for a different reason, but go ahead and finish your thought.
And then for memorable moments, again, I give it to Mansions of Madness. As much as Journeys to Middle Earth, I've played it once, and I still remember how well I played and how annoyed we got when we went the wrong way and had to go back. But for me, the memorable moments, running away from that horde, being able to find that one piece you really need, or fighting the big bad at the end of a level, and just you remember all of these. I don't want to give too many spoilers for people, but yeah, it's just all this stuff is going on, and there's a reason why it is number one in Fantasy Flight, because it is very immersive.
Yeah,
you get that feel, you get that tension.
Right. I was gonna say, as far as theme mechanisms is really where it pushes Mansions of Madness, because the source material is true. You know, you're using the characters that are from the storyline. The settings are pretty much the same as the storyline, whereas Lord of the Rings, it's the middle ground between Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, where they had to make their own source material. While a lot of the characters and a lot of the stuff makes sense, it doesn't match the theme. Technically, not as much, because that's their own original setting that they had to effectively make.
And the thing is, so for me, Mansions of Madness feels like it's a game that could be part of a canon, I guess you could say, in Arkham Horror.
Right.
Whereas Lord of the Rings feels like a game they made in the Lord of the Rings world, but it doesn't really match, and it's not really canon between the two.
That would be like if we were comparing, does the theme match mechanisms for X-Wing versus Outer Rim? Do you go with canon, or do you go with out? Or it's canon, but or
if we're talking
extended
about like
universe.
Star Wars in general, it's basically, or Lord of the Rings is basically the expanded universe of Star Wars. It's no longer canon. It's no longer there. It's just legends in the Star Wars universe, or in Lord of the Rings universe.
Right.
It's there, but is it real?
Yeah, exactly. So let's. So that gives Dimensions of Madness, which now makes 2-2 each, and it's down to replay value.
Where I think it's a wash, and I think this going to have to go to tiebreaker, because replay value, both play in a relative, because the app integrates it where it plays quicker.
Yep. Exactly.
Minimum number of plays for full experience. It's an app, so it can have an infinite number of plays.
And right now they're both fairly new. They're almost the same game as far as that. So that means that it has to go to a tie-breaking vote on which our
if
viewers.
You want to be part of the tie-breaking vote, go to Board Game Revolution on Facebook. These posts will usually go up on Wednesdays or Thursdays before the top 8 debate, and put your sense in and say why.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. So that's calls it right there. Let's find out which of those two games, Mansions of Madness or Lord of the Rings, Journeys to Middle Earth, is the best Fantasy Flight game voted by our viewers. Tell me, I haven't seen it.
Just so you know, again, This was number 1 and number 2 of our top 8 in there.
Okay.
And also, again, one of them was actually the number 3 because Star Wars Rebellion beat it out by 1 vote.
How many votes did they have?
So it is a 12-8 vote. There's a 4-point difference. Can you take a guess which one is number 1?
Judging by the seating on Board Game Geek, I'm gonna guess Mansions.
Mansions of Madness had 12. Lord of the Rings had 8. This was actually quite close.
Yeah.
Well, put it this way. Our top 3 games, one of which was not in our debate at all, was Mansions of Madness, Star Wars Rebellion, and Lord of the Rings. 12, 9, and 8.
Yeah.
That's
that was
how
incredibly close.
A
Yep.
4-point difference between the top 3. Now, when we go into our debate, it's a bit different. The third best vote in our debate was Elder Tor at 5.
Yeah. Wait, let me ask you real quick. Star Wars Rebellion, is that the one where you have the minis of like Darth Vader and all that, and it's basically Descent? Okay.
That's
Which one
Star
am I
Wars Imperial Assault. That
Imperial
was my honorable
Assault.
mention.
Gotcha. Okay.
Star Wars Rebellion is basically space. Remember how I was talking about how I want the ground troops in X-Wing? Or this way you can have like the space battle as well as the ground battle?
Yeah.
Star Wars Rebellion has that. You have space battles, so you have the spaceship minis that you put on the board, but you're also fighting over control of planets. So you have actually ground troops on the planets fighting over each other. You have admirals and generals and stuff like that.
Interesting. Cool. No, that's good fun. Well, congratulations to Mansions of Madness for now being, according to us and our debates, the best Fantasy Flight game as of June 5th, 2020. I don't think there's much more to say.
No, it was actually a tough one for me, and I'm glad it went to tiebreaker because I didn't have to make the decision.
Right. I was kind of the same way. It's like I personally prefer Lord of the Rings just because I like fantasy more. That's my only reason, right?
And again, I understand people's gripes about H.P. Lovecraft and why they won't play it. I don't disagree with their meaning for it, but I love horror, and to give me these kind of horror tensions in a board game, it's kind of hard to do, and so. For some reason, H.P. Lovecraft stuff translate very well into board gaming form.
Right. Yeah, it really does.
I don't even think the other game that kind of gives me this tension is, say, Dead of Winter, and it gives me that. What is it? The Walking Dead feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got zombies in it, but zombies aren't the main thing. It's the tension with the camp.
You have that ominous looming. Zombies are just there to provide that there is something coming at you at all times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, that was a fun battle.
It was.
Stay tuned with us, and we will. If you are watching us live, you can help give input as to which top 8 debate we discuss for next Friday. But coming up this upcoming Monday, we are going to have another board game breakdown with Smirk and Dagger Games, and we are going to be joined by Kurt Covert, designer and owner of Smirk and Dagger Games. So
Smirk and Laughter.
And Smirk and Laughter, exactly. So we're going to be having an interview with him. It's going to be good fun. Post your questions below and we can talk to you about those. And then, next Wednesday...
On Wednesday, we're having our Chits and Giggle topic discussion, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I had it written down.
Underutilized
mechanisms.
Yeah. So which mechanisms do we want to see used more in board games, or we don't think we see enough of them?
Yeah, so just FYI, worker placement, as much as it's my favorite mechanism, not going to make my list because it's used a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a Fallout game that uses worker placement that I want to get.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I only have one on my list so far, and you're going to be very surprised.
I have one on my list so far, and you're going to be very surprised.
All right. Well,
and with that being said, we're going to go ahead and leave it at that. If you want to get in contact with us, you can at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com. If you want to see the re-uploads of this, it's at everydayboardgames2020 on YouTube, as well as the audio versions go up on Everyday Board Games on Podbean.
And if you want to watch us live, join us at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames. And you can join in on the discussion live while we record. We normally film Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at about noon, Mountain Daylight Savings Time. And if you want to join in on many of the discussions, shout out to Board Game Revolution, the board game based forum on Facebook, where we ask our viewers a lot of these questions.
Also, one minor thing about the YouTube channel, we have made the decision that some of the past board game breakdowns are going to be pushed to further dates. They're going to be basically printed out of order or published out of order, and that's because we are going to go ahead on Monday upload the level 99 game interview with Brad Talton and Josh Van Langenham.
Yeah.
And that will go up on Monday.
And that's because their Kickstarter is currently running, as well as Fireside Games, which will be coming up the following week. And Smirk and Dagger Games this week will probably be pushed ahead because of upcoming Kickstarters that they have going. We want to give them as much press as possible.
Yep, exactly.
And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Daniel.
And Daniel.
And thank you for watching Everyday Board Games.
Have a good one.